In 1940, the United States Army had no modern medium tank. Its heaviest vehicles still carried 37mm guns, weapons already outclassed by every German design rolling across Europe. When France collapsed that summer, it was clear that any future war would be fought with armor, and the U.S. had almost none. American ordnance officers faced a brutal deadline. They needed a tank mounting a 75mm gun, something powerful enough to destroy fortifications and enemy armor, and they needed it immediately. The problem was that no U.S. factory could yet build a turret large enough for a gun that size. The solution would have to be improvised. That improvisation became the M3 Lee, and in British service, the Grant, a machine with 2 main guns, 7 crewmen, and one purpose: to hold the line until something better arrived. It wasn't built to dominate battlefields. It was built to buy time. After the fall of France, the British Expeditionary Force left most of its tanks behind at Dunkirk. Britain turned to the United States for replacements. In Washington, military planners realized that America was next in line. If Britain fell, there would be no one left to fight the Axis. The U.S. Army's Tank Ordnance Department met with industry and demanded a design that could be produced fast, using existing factories and machinery. The first requirement was clear: mount a 75mm gun, the same caliber used by German Panzers and French Char B-1s. The catch: American turret rings were too small and manufacturing techniques too crude to fit such a weapon in a rotating mount. So engineers did something no other major army would attempt. They bolted the 75 into the side of the hull. It was fixed in a right-hand sponson with only a limited side-to-side swing. Above it, they kept a small turret for the existing 37mm gun, insurance against enemy armor. It was an awkward arrangement, but it could be built with current tools and steel mills. By the summer of 1941, the first prototypes rolled out of the Detroit tank arsenal. The Army called it the medium tank M3. No one expected it to last long, but it was the only thing ready before the next crisis arrived. The M3's layout was a catalog of compromises. Its 7-man crew was stacked on 3 levels: driver and co-driver low in front, gunners and loaders in the hull sponson, commander and turret crew above them. The hull was tall, almost 3 meters from ground to turret roof, which made it easy to spot and easy to hit. Early production used riveted armor, cheaper but dangerous when struck. The rivets sheared off and ricocheted around the crew compartment. Inside, the arrangement was cramped and hot. Communication between levels relied on field intercoms or yelling through hatches. To the British, who were desperate for a tank that could fire high-explosive rounds in the desert, the layout was acceptable, but the commander's position wasn't. The American Lee had its radio in the turret rear, forcing the commander to double as radio operator. The British ordered a new turret design with a dedicated radio bay on the hull side and a lower silhouette. Their version was named the Grant, after Ulysses S. Grant. The U.S. kept the original layout and named it for Confederate General Robert E. Lee. It was an accidental pair of Civil War rivals reborn in steel. 2 variants of the same awkward machine, each built to fight a very modern war with a design stuck in the past. Once the prototype was accepted, production moved fast. The U.S. Ordnance Department contracted Chrysler, Baldwin Locomotive Works, and American Locomotive Company to build it. Chrysler's massive new Detroit tank arsenal, opened in 1941, became the centerpiece of American armored production. From August 1941 to December 1942, factories turned out more than 6,000 M3s in several variants. Each plant built slightly different models: riveted, welded, or cast hulls depending on available tooling. It was chaotic, but quantity mattered more than standardization. The British received roughly 2,800 of them under Lend-Lease, calling their version the Grant. The Soviet Union received about 1,400,000, shipped through the Persian Corridor and Arctic convoys. U.S. armored units trained with the Lee at home and carried some into the early Pacific campaigns. The tank's odd shape and high fighting compartment made it instantly recognizable. Soldiers joked it looked like a 3-story house with a gun. But in 1941, it was the only medium tank America could deliver in numbers. This was the beginning of something much bigger, an industrial mobilization that would soon make the United States the world's largest manufacturer of tanks. The M3 was clumsy, but it proved the factories worked. The M3's combat debut came with the British 8th Army in North Africa. In May 1942, the first Grants went into action during the Battle of Gazala against Rommel's Afrika Korps. For the British, it was a breakthrough. Their existing tanks, Crusaders and Valentines, had struggled to carry a gun heavy enough to fire high-explosive shells against German anti-tank positions. The M3's 75mm gun, though fixed in the hull, finally gave them the reach to destroy those defenses at range. At Gazala and later at Alam Halfa and El Alamein, the Grant's long-range firepower played a crucial role in halting German advances. It couldn't hide and it wasn't agile, but its shell could kill a gun pit or half-track before the German crews could answer. British crews adapted quickly. They used the 75mm to smash soft targets and dug-in guns, saving the turret-mounted 37mm for close-range armor duels. Reports from 8th Army commanders called the Grant a great improvement, despite its ungainly profile. When American units later landed with their own M3s in Operation Torch, the North African front was already teaching every army the same lesson. Firepower mattered more than elegance. Inside the M3, fighting the tank was almost an exercise in teamwork under pressure. The 75mm gun had only about 30 degrees of traverse, so to track a target, the driver often had to pivot the entire tank. The gunner relied on the driver to fine-tune aim, a clumsy dance in combat conditions. The 37mm turret gave limited flexibility, but weak armor penetration against later German models. Machine guns were mounted everywhere, one in the hull, one coaxial with the turret gun, and sometimes one on top for anti-air defense. Visibility was poor. Each level of the crew had its own periscopes or slits. Communication was by intercom or shouting through the fighting compartment. In desert heat, internal temperatures could exceed 45 degrees Celsius. The tall profile made it easy to hit. German crews nicknamed it the Iron Cathedral. Soviet units that received them under Lend-Lease were harsher. They called it a coffin for 7 brothers. It's unclear if that phrase was actually used during the war, but it reflected how crews felt about its survivability. Despite all this, Allied tankers respected its reliability. The M3's radial and diesel engines could run for days, and its firepower, especially early in 1942, was unmatched in its class. In practice, the Lee and Grant were tools for a very specific job: fight until the next generation of tanks could take over. Every mile they advanced and every gun they silenced bought time for the tank that would replace them, the M4 Sherman. By late 1942, the Lee and Grant had done their job, but German equipment had advanced. The Panzer IV, with its long-barrel 75mm gun, could pierce the M3's armor long before the M3's crew could bring the fixed hull gun to bear. The 88mm Flak 36 guns that defended Axis positions in North Africa turned the tall American tanks into easy targets. British and American reports listed the same issues: limited traverse, thin side armor, and crews injured by rivets that broke loose when hit. Field workshops began welding plates over the rivets and adding extra stowage to the hull sides for protection. In the Soviet Union, about 1,386 M3s arrived through Lend-Lease. Mechanics liked the reliable engines and radios, but crews called it top-heavy and complained about visibility. By mid-1943, most Soviet M3s were withdrawn to training units. After El Alamein, the main Allied forces re-equipped with Shermans, but M3s remained in use elsewhere. In Burma, the 254th Indian Tank Brigade fought with them at Imphal and Kohima in 1944. The 3rd Carabiniers used Grants to climb the steep ridges around Nunchigum, where the Japanese expected no armor. The Lee's engine reliability and short-range firepower were more useful than speed or armor thickness. American Marine units operated small numbers of Lees in New Guinea and Makin Atoll as close support guns. Their 75mm howitzer-style shells were effective against bunkers and light vehicles. These campaigns showed that outside Europe, the M3 still had value wherever terrain limited heavier tanks or the enemy lacked modern armor. The M3's chassis became a workhorse platform. Its running gear and engine formed the base of the M7 Priest 105mm self-propelled howitzer, which entered service in 1942 and served through the end of the war. The same hull produced the M31 tank recovery vehicle, fitted with a crane boom and dummy gun to disguise it under combat conditions. Other conversions included command tanks, bulldozers, and mine-clearing vehicles. For American industry, the M3 program was essential. It proved that mass production of medium tanks was possible and that multiple factories could share components without slowing output. The M4 Sherman entered production in late 1942, built on the same lower hull and mechanical systems as the M3. It replaced the sponson gun with a fully rotating 75mm turret, solving the main design flaw. As M4s reached the front, M3s moved to training schools and secondary theaters. Britain retired its remaining Grants after the North African and Italian campaigns. The Soviet Union scrapped most by 1944. In the Pacific and Burma, the last operational M3s served until Japan's surrender. Post-war, surplus vehicles were sold or converted for engineering duties. A few remain in museums at Bovington, Aberdeen, and Kubinka, preserved as examples of the first mass-produced American medium tank.